Hello everyone, this is Mohit Singh Katoch, working as Assistant Professor in Civil Engineering Department of Tulsiramji Gaikwad Patil College of Engineering and Technology, Nagpur. I welcome you all in today's lecture on the subject Water and Wastewater Treatment. The topic which we are going to cover today is aeration, which comes under the unit operation of gas transfer. In water and wastewater treatment, unit operations are those procedures in which the changes produced are physical, chemical, or biological. Various important unit operations include gas transfer, ion transfer, solute stabilization, solid concentration and stabilization, etc. Among these, today we are going to study the unit operation of gas transfer. Aeration process comes under this unit operation. Aeration is one of the most important unit operation of gas transfer. The aim of the aeration is to create extensive, new and self-renewing interfaces between air and water, that is the liquid phase and the gaseous phase, to keep interfacial films from building up in thickness. In other words, we can say that it is the process of bringing water in intimate contact with air, and while doing so, the water absorbs oxygen from the air and the dissolved oxygen content of the air increases. Using aeration, we can remove carbon dioxide up to 60%, we can remove the iron and manganese metals, and we can also remove hydrogen sulfide and other gases up to certain extent from the raw water which is coming into the treatment plant. The aeration of water is done to accomplish the following objectives. It removes taste and odors caused by gases due to organic decomposition. It increases the dissolved oxygen content of the water and imparts freshness to the water. It removes or decreases the carbon dioxide content of water, which thereby reduces its corrosiveness and raises its pH value. It is used to remove hydrogen sulfide content of water, and hence odor due to this is also removed. It is used to remove methane and a taste which is caused due to the organic decomposition. It converts iron and manganese from their soluble states into their insoluble states so that these can be precipitated and removed, and thereby we can remove the color, taste and odor imparted by iron and manganese. Due to aeration, we add oxygen into the water, which in turn oxidizes the organic matter, and thereby volatile substances are removed from water. Apart from these objectives, it is also used for mixing chemicals with water, as in the aeromix process and in the use of diffused compressed air. Due to the agitation of water during aeration, bacteria may also get killed up to certain amount of extents. So these were the objectives of aeration process. Now let us see what are the factors which affects this aeration process. So there are various factors such as temperature, concentration of impurities, thickness of the interface, surface area of the interface, time of contact, partial pressure and the degree of undersaturation. So these factors affects the efficiency of the aeration process. So let us see one by one each one of these in detail. Number first is temperature. If the temperature of the water is less, then less will be the solubility of the water, and resulting aeration process will be lesser in the amount. Second is concentration of impurities. If the concentration of impurities is more, then the solubility of the water will be lesser, and thereby the aeration process will be in the lesser amount. Third is thickness of interface. If the thickness of the interface is more, less will be the rate of exchange of gas, and thereby this will reduce the aeration process. Next is surface area of interface. If the surface area of interface is more will be the rate of exchange of gas, and thereby the process of aeration will happen with more efficiency. If the time of contact is more, then again there will be more exchange of gases, and thereby aeration will be more. Next is partial pressure. If the partial pressure is more will be the solubility and rate of exchange of gas, which will increase the aeration. Last factor is degree of undersaturation. If it is more, then faster will be the rate of exchange, and thereby the aeration process will work with more efficiency. So these factors affects the aeration process and its efficiency. Now let us have a look on the limitations of this aeration process. First limitation is that it is not an efficient method of removal or reduction of tastes and odors caused by relatively non-volatile substances such as oils, algae and industrial wastewater. Also, the tastes and odors caused by chemicals due to industrial waste discharged into the receiving waters are not satisfactorily reduced. The odor removal is 50% only when Cymura bacteria is present in the water. The aeration may add more oxygen in water, making it more corrosive while removing iron and manganese. This is another limitation, that though it removes iron and manganese, but it may make water more corrosive. Iron and manganese can be precipitated by aeration only and only when organic matter is not present. If organic matter is present in water, then they will stick to these iron and manganese particles, and their precipitation will be much more difficult. The possibility of airborne contamination in water is always there. The additional lime may be required to neutralize the carbon dioxide that would be removed by the aeration. This is another limitation. The last limitation is that the aeration process is economical only in the warmer months, and it is not economical in the colder months. So these are the 7 limitations of aeration process. Now we will see what are the various types of aerators, and then we will design a cascade aerator. So the aerators are divided into 3 categories. Number 1 is spray aerators. Number 2 is diffused aerators, or they are also called as air diffuser basins. And third one is gravity aerators or free fall aerators. These gravity aerators are further classified into cascade aerator, multiple tray aerator, inclined apron aerator, slat tray aerator and gravel bed aerators, which are also called as trickling beds when used in different combination. So let us now see all these types of aerators in details one by one. First we will see about cascade aerator. So cascade aerators are the simplest of the free fall or gravity aerators. Weirs and waterfalls of any kind can be classified as cascade aerators. As you can see in the figure, the water comes from the top, it flows downwards through these steps, and during this flow motion turbulence is created, due to which the water comes in intimate contact with the air and oxygen is added into this water, and this aerated water is collected in the bottom channel, from where it moves further towards next unit. So a simple cascade aerator consists of a series of generally 3 to 4 steps, but we can add up to 9 steps depending upon the design criteria, which are of concrete or metal. Water is allowed to fall through a height of 1 to 3 meters and due to this it comes into close contact with air. The cascades can be either in open air or maybe in a room which has plenty of louvered air inlets. The reduction of carbon dioxide is usually in the range of 50 to 60% in case of cascade aerators. The rise of steps which are used here, the rise of each step should not be more than 50 centimeters and it should be in the range of between 20 to 50 centimeter. We will see these design criteria while designing a cascade aerator. So this is a diagram of cascade aerators, actual photographs. These types of cascade aerators are commonly used throughout India. So these are few other photographs of cascade aerators. You can see how water is flowing in the downward direction and turbulence is created. Eddies are being formed here and oxygen is getting mixed into this water. So this is all about cascade aerators. Next type of free fall aerator is inclined apron aerator. In this type of aerator, water is allowed to fall along an inclined plane or apron which is usually studded with riffle plates in herringbone fashion. The breaking up to the sheet of water will cause agitation of water and it will result in consequent aeration. So we can see that due to these riffle plates which acts as a obstruction in the normal flow of water, water is agitated and due to its turbulence air is mixed into this water and aeration process is achieved. The next type of free fall aerator is the slat tray aerator. This is the most commonly used type after cascade aerator. It consists of a closed round or square structure containing a series of closely stacked superimposed wood slat trays, as you can see in the figure. Water enters the top of the aerator and is evenly distributed over the topmost tray. The slates in the tray are staggered so that the films of water raining over the edges of the slat in one tray falls on the centers of the slats in the tray just below. Air is supplied to the bottom of the aerator with the help of a blower which blows it upwards. A ventilator is provided at the top which discharges air and gases to the atmosphere. Water is collected in the collector pan at the bottom from where it flows to a catch basin or reservoir. The last type of free fall aerator which we are going to see is gravel bed aerators or trickling beds. Cascading of water through beds of coke, limestone or anthracite is believed to have more efficient carbon dioxide removal as compared to other methods. The first figure shows a typical gravel bed aerator in which water is applied at the top and it trickles down while air is blown upwards. The thickness of gravel bed may be from 1 to 1.5 meter. In another form, commonly known as trickling beds, which is shown in the second figure, 3 or 4 trays filled with coke, slag or stone are used. The thickness of bed in each tray is kept about 0.5 to 0.6 meter, while the vertical distance between them is kept about 0.5 meter. Water is applied from the top through a perforated distribution pipe. You can see here in the figure that water is entering through this pipe and then through this perforated distribution pipe it is entering from the top. During the trickling process and during this downward motion, the aeration takes place and the aerated water is collected at the bottommost chamber and is taken to the next unit from this outlet. Now we will see spray type of aerator. So the spray aerators divide the water flow into fine streams and small droplets which comes into intimate contact with the air in their trajectory. Water is sprinkled in fine jets through nozzles. It requires considerable head of about 0.75 to 1.5 kilogram per centimeter square, but it reduces carbon dioxide content in the water by about 70 to 90%, or in some cases even more than 90%. So as you can see in the diagram, water is being sprayed into the air, and when it is coming down, the air is getting mixed into the water and the dissolved content of the water is increased, and this helps in reducing carbon dioxide content from the water by about 70%. So the last type of aerator which we are going to see today is air diffuser basins. In this method of air diffusion, perforated pipe network is installed at the bottom of the aeration tank and compressed air is blown through these pipes. The air bubbles which enters into the water through these perforated pipes travels upwards to the water, and during this upward motion the aeration process takes place. The air diffuser basins have a retention period of about 15 minutes and a depth of about 3 to 5 meters. Alternatively, compressed air may be injected into the flow of water in a pipe, or air at atmospheric pressure may be drawn in the pipe where a constriction, such as the throat of a venturi tube, reduces the water pressure below atmospheric pressure. However, it should be noted that aeration process which takes under pressure does not remove CO2, and hence it is very rarely used. In this way, we have completed the various types of aerators. This is a diagram showing the photographs of actual air diffuser basins. We can see how nozzles and perforated pipes are placed at the bottom of the tank. From these nozzles, compressed air blows in the upward direction and aeration process takes place in this diffuser basin. Now we will see design of a cascade aerator. But before that, we have to have a look over various design criteria which should be kept in mind while designing a cascade aerators. So the very first criteria which should be kept in mind is the area required for design of aerator, which should be in the range of 0.015 to 0.045 meter square per meter cube per hour. It should be not less than this or not more than the upper value. The number of cascade steps should be in the range of between 3 to 9. The height of aerator should be between 1 meter to 3 meter. The rise of each step, that is the rise of each cascade, should be between 20 to 50 centimeter. And last, the velocity of the inlet pipe which brings the raw water at the top of the cascade aerator should be between 0.3 to 0.9 meter per second. So the water should flow with this velocity in the inlet pipe. So now we will design a cascade aerator for a inflow of 12 mld, and we will assume the other data suitably depending upon the design criteria we have just seen now. So part A, design of inlet pipe which brings the raw water. So the flow here is given as 12 mld. We will denote it by Q. Then we will convert this 12 mld, that is million liters per day, into meter cube per second. So 12 multiplied by 10 raised to power 6 into 10 raised to power minus 3 divided by 24 into 60 by 60. This will give the value as 0.138 meter cube per second. So now we have to assume the velocity through the inlet pipe. Here we have assumed the velocity as 0.6 meter per second. we can see in our design criteria it should be between 0.3 to 0.9 meter per second. So we have taken an average value between both these, 0.6 meter per second. Now using the formula of area of inlet pipe, that is Q divided by this assumed velocity V, when we divide 0.138 meter cube per second by 0.6 meter per second, we will get a value of 0.23, and using the another formula, that is pi by 4 dp square, where dp is the diameter of the inlet pipe, we will get the value of dp as 0.6 meter. So the inlet pipe which is bringing the raw water will have a diameter of about 0.6 meter. Next we have to design the aerator. So assuming the area required for design of aerator as 0.030 meter square per meter cube per hour. Again, this is within the range of 0.015 and 0.045. We have taken an average value, middle value between both these. So the flow rate, inflow rate Q, which is 12 mld, is equal to 500 meter cube per hour. In the design of inlet pipe, we have seen that we have taken the value of Q in meter cube per second. While designing this aerator, now in this step B, we will take the value of Q as meter cube per hour. So using both these values, the area of bottom cascade aerator can be calculated as 0.03 into 500 meter cube per hour, which gives the value as 15 meter square. But this is not the complete total area. The total area can be calculated using the formula area of the bottom cascade aerator plus the area of the inlet pipe, which we just calculated in step A. So 15 plus pi by 4 into 0.6 square, which is the area of the inlet pipe, it gives us the value of 15.28 meter square. So 15.28 meter square is the total area of the bottom cascade aerator, which is in the round shape. I have used this figure for reference. This figure is from some another numerical, but it will be helpful for us in understanding these design steps. So just now we have calculated the total area of the bottom cascade aerator as 15.28 meter square, the entire area of the bottom cascade, including this central shaft inlet pipe area. Now we have to assume the number of steps. The given range is between 3 to 9. We will assume number of steps as 5 steps. So first we will now calculate the diameter of the bottommost cascade, that is the 5th step. Using the formula pi by 4 d5 square is equal to 15.28 meter square. We get the diameter of 5th step as 4.5 meter. Now assuming the height of aerator as 2 meter, the design criteria gave us the range between 1 to 3. We are assuming the height as 2 meter. So now rise of each step can be calculated as dividing this height of 2 meter by the number of steps, which we have assumed as 5. So 2 divided by 5 gives us value as 0.4 meter. So the each step which we are going to design will have a rise, or that is the height of 0.4 meter. So we have calculated the diameter of the bottommost cascade as 4.5 and the rise of each step is 0.4 meter. Now calculating the diameter of 4th cascade step, we will use the formula as the diameter of 5th cascade 4.5. It will be divided by the height of the aerator, that is 2 meter. So 4.5 divided by 2, it is equal to the diameter of 4th step, which will be divided by the height of the aerator 2 meter minus the height or the rise of the bottommost 5th step, which is 0.4 meter. So 2 minus 0.4 meter. Solving this equation, we get the value of D4 as 3.6 meter. Now we will calculate the diameter of third cascade step using the similar formula, 4.5 divided by 2. Now D4 will be replaced by D3 as we are calculating the diameter of third step, and again in the denominator we will minus 0.8 from 2 meter. Why 0.8? Because there are fourth and fifth step below this third step. Each step is having the height of 0.4 meter. So two steps will have a height of 0.8 meter. So 0.8 will be minused from the total height 2 meter. Solving this equation, we get the value of D3 as 2.7 meter. So we can see that the diameter of each step is reducing as we are moving upward. So the bottommost fifth step had a diameter of 4.5 meter. Fourth step is having a diameter of 3.6 meter. Third step is having a diameter of 2.7 meter. Now we will calculate the diameter of second and first step in the similar fashion. So again, formula for the second step, 4.5 divided by 2 is equal to D2, that is diameter of second cascade step, divided by 2 minus 1.2. 1.2 because there are 3 steps below this second step, number third, number fourth and number fifth, each having a rise of 0.4 meter, hence the value 1.2. Solving this equation, we get the diameter of second cascade step as 1.8 meter, and finally the diameter of first cascade step can be calculated using the similar formula. Just we have to replace this 1.2 with 1.6 as there are 4 steps below this first topmost cascade step, and solving this equation we get the diameter of first cascade step as 0.9 meter. In this way we have calculated the diameter of all the 5 cascade steps. Now last thing is remaining, that is the design of the collecting channel which will collect the aerated water coming from these 5 steps. So diameter of the collecting channel can be calculated by assuming the width as 1 meter. So we have the diameter of the bottommost cascade step as 4.5 meter. Now width we have assumed as 1 meter. It will be calculated on both sides. How? You can see this diagram which I have kept for the reference. So here the bottommost cascade is having, we have calculated this value as 4.5 meter. Now the collecting channel is on the both sides. It is a circular, just a second, this collecting chamber is having some diameter which we are going to calculate in this fashion. So the collecting chamber, here the width is 1 meter and here also the width is 1 meter. So 4.5 plus 1 meter and plus 1 meter. So this will give us the value as 6.5 meter. So the diameter of the collecting channel is 6.5 meter. Now using the formula, small q is equal to 1.375 into b into h raised to power 3 by 2. Here small q is discharge of the water through channel, this collecting channel in meter cube per second. B is the width of the channel in meter, and height is h is the height of the channel in meter. So now we have to calculate this q, but we are having the value of capital Q, that is the inflow rate of 12 mld, which was calculated as 0.138 meter cube per second. It will be divided by the total height of the cascade aerator, which we calculated as 2 meter. Now using this formula and putting all the values here, q is 0.138 meter cube per second, it is divided by 2 meter, then 1.375 into b, we have assumed the width of channel as 1 meter, so b will be replaced by 1, and h raised to power 3 by 2. So solving this equation, we will get the value of h as 0.14 meter. So the height of the collecting channel is going to be 0.14 meter. So the final design results, which we have calculated in all these three steps, step A, B and C. The diameter of inlet pipe was calculated as 0.6 meter. The total area of bottom cascade aerator, that is the fifth cascade aerator, came to be 15.28 meters square. We calculated the diameter of the fifth bottommost cascade step as 4.5 meter. Fourth cascade step diameter is 3.6 meter. Third cascade step diameter is 2.7 meter. Second cascade step diameter is 1.8 meter, and the diameter of first, that is the topmost cascade step, is 0.9 meter. And at last, the diameter of the collecting channel is 6.5 meter. I told you how it came. 4.5 meter the diameter of the bottommost cascade plus width of the channel on both sides, 1 meter on the left side and 1 meter on the right side, gives us the value of 6.5 meter. And finally, the height of collecting channel was calculated as 0.14 meter. In this way, we have reached the end of today's topic. In the next lecture, we are going to study about coagulation and flocculation process. Till then, have a nice time and study well. Thank you very much.